It's emotionally very demanding when your family member first goes into a dementia facility, but in a sense, one needs to emotionally steel oneself and be emotionally strong, because especially in that first 1 to 3 months, there's so much to deal with on a practical level. So if you can be practical and positive as much as practically possible, then it goes a long way to being able to get through that sort of initial trial period, if you like, to hopefully then enable the dementia resident, your family member, to adjust to living in the dementia facility. I mean, the room needs to be set up, forms need to be filled out, orientation in terms of the unit, the staff, the carers, who does what. There really is a lot to know in a dementia unit. And the more that can be assimilated and integrated, the better chance the person has of being able to adjust to the dementia facility. So initially, after the forms are filled out, that's always a big task. There's so many forms, and it's important to fill out the forms in a detailed fashion, especially for the activity coordinator and the nurse, of course, and the carers. But for the activity coordinator, if you can fill out specifically what activities your relative likes to do, whether they like to read the newspaper, listen to the newspaper reading, what magazines they like to read, if they read at all, if they like sport, what they like to watch on television, all these activities, all these things, if they're noted down, then the activity coordinator will set up the assessment, and all aspects are considered with the assessment: emotional, physical, psychological, intellectual. It's a really big assessment. So once that's done and it's all in place, then the nurses, the carers, not so much the doctors, but the nurses, the carers, and the clinical manager will have sight of that assessment and keep tabs of it as well. So it just enables the staff to be able to encourage your family member in those activities on a daily basis, because the activity schedule is a monthly schedule with, each day, each hour actually, activities are laid out for the day. And if they know in the assessment what it is that your relative likes, then they'll encourage them to go to those daily activities, such as the press reading, newspaper reading is on each morning, exercises twice a day in dementia facilities in New Zealand at least, make and create for the men once a week, sing-along sessions, entertainers, etc., etc. Movies in the day, happy hour, lots of activities. But if there's things that your relative also doesn't like, maybe they're not social, maybe they get, they don't like being with lots of people in a big crowd, so happy hour for them is a misery rather than enjoyment. Note that, and then they can just be in their room for that time. So all of this can be adjusted as you go along, but initially, if it's set up from the start, it makes it easier. Now also with the bedroom, making it as close to home as possible, that being the big aim. That will help a lot with the anguish of the person, living there and being constrained. Because if they have their own comfortable chair, comfortable bedding, etc., things that they recognise on the walls, and just like it would be like in their lounge or bedroom at home, then that really reduces the chasm of, the massive stretch of adjustment that they're having to go through. It's just, everything is just so utterly disorientating. Whereas if they can have things in their room where they can be orientated, at least in their own space, really, that goes a long way to them being able to adjust and assimilate in the dementia facility. So once that's done, that will be, set up in the first week or so. Making sure that they are able to have contact with you. This is really important. It's really distressing for residents when they can't get in touch with relatives, when the relatives don't visit, and sometimes the relatives do actually visit, but the resident has forgotten. They're trying to reach the relative and they can't get through for many reasons, often because it's so difficult to get through on the phone line because the nurse is so busy, to be able to make the phone call is a real mission. And sometimes there's a whole queue of people wanting to make the phone call. And then indeed, the resident themselves often finds it difficult to recognise who the charge nurse is that they're meant to be asking to get the phone call out. There's so many problems with that. So making a phone call is so difficult. Really, it's better if you can just phone your relative once a day, say whatever time. 2 in the afternoon is always a good time, after lunch, or 6 o'clock at night after dinner if you're back from work. Then if the resident knows that they're getting a daily phone call from you, they feel supported and integrated. So much stress is reduced in that manner, rather than them trying to call out all day. And then the nursing staff and the carers will be able to remind the resident that, yes, your wife's ringing at 6 o'clock. She rings that time every day. She'll be ringing then. So don't worry, just wait for the phone call. And the person will settle down with that. Then, of course, there's visits, friends, family visits, and getting all of that organised so that the person is supported. It really depends too as well on the resident, at their age, their health, their interests, their fitness, etc., as to how you support them in an integrated way for them to be able to manage in the dementia unit and hopefully settle down. If say your mother is elderly and she's on a walker and she's come either from the nursing home or the retirement village, assisted living, it's not going to be really a big wrench. A couple of visits a week and maybe one walk out a week is probably fine for her. But for a person, a younger man, for example, who's come straight from home and he's fit and healthy, aside from dementia, that's a totally and utterly different situation. They will find it so much harder to orientate. I mean, if you've come from a nursing home, which is not that dissimilar to a dementia unit, if you've come from the nursing home, say downstairs, and you don't walk much anyway because your mobility is restricted, so when you go upstairs you don't hardly even notice that you're not able to get out independently if you haven't been walking down at the nursing home outside on your own because it's unsafe for you, or you don't like it, or you're not really interested in walking anymore except for going from the lounge to the bedroom. But if you go to a dementia unit and you've come from home where you're used to walking and you're used to being outside and your wife's taken you for walks regularly each day and etc., or your friends, maybe your mates come round, once or twice a week to take you for a walk or out to the beach, and you've had it like a social life and you've been outside quite a lot. People have been able to help you with direction orientation, or the neighbours help, they keep an eye out. All of a sudden, you're in a dementia facility with the doors locked. Oh, it's just so stressful. So if a walking program can be put in place, that's initially really important. Maybe if you yourself are working and can't manage it all the time, maybe get the Rotary. If your husbands belong to Rotary or Lion, getting a walking routine, a walking mentor to take him regularly for walks voluntarily. Just get a schedule set up with people that are prepared to help to take him out for a walk once a day if possible. That really does help a lot. There's so much to consider. And if this is all put in place for the first 3 months, especially with your family member, it will help a lot for them to be able to adjust. So I've written these 2 books, The Resident's Voice and The Resident's Rise, both from a dementia unit, about the dementia residents' experiences, and both on Amazon. And thank you for your looks and your likes, and please subscribe. I really appreciate it.